Hi guys, good morning. Sorry I forgot to read yesterday. I guess I got preoccupied with our Zoom video. So I am going to read to you today about Helen Keller, The Value of Determination, from our book of Value Tales Treasury Stories for Growing Good People. I hope that you got to play in the snow last night or maybe even early this morning. It's supposed to be really nice this afternoon, so you can get out and ride your bikes and play outside, get some fresh air. Right now my son is vacuuming. I hope you've been helping your parents with chores around the house too. All right, here we go. Hello, hello, hello. As you can see, there are 3 of us. Our names are Sight, Sound, and Speech. We're the true voice of a remarkable girl named Helen Keller. You know, your true voice is that voice inside you that gives you your best thoughts. Helen was unlike most children because she could not hear or see or even speak. We are going to help you discover how, in spite of all this, Helen went on to live a very happy and successful life indeed, because she knew the value of determination. Close your eyes and plug your ears for just a few moments. Can you imagine what life might have been like for Helen Keller? Well, let's discover that together. Once upon a time, a baby was born by the name of Helen. At first, she could see and hear like other healthy children, but then when she was only a year and a half old, little Helen became sick with a very high fever. When the fever passed, something very unusual happened. Helen was left blind and deaf. Her parents felt sorry for her and spoiled her. Helen couldn't understand her dark, silent world and became confused and unhappy. She was frustrated and angry and began to behave badly. Even when we, her true voice, tried to calm her, we failed. You would be happier if you behaved, we all said to her. But even though she could hear her own thoughts, she refused to pay attention. Her parents finally heard about a very special teacher for blind children named Anne Sullivan, and they called upon her to help them. When Anne arrived at the Keller home, she brought a doll for Helen. Helen rudely grabbed the doll out of Anne's hands, but then Anne took hold of Helen's hand, and with her fingers she spelled the word doll on Helen's hand. What is she doing? Helen wondered. Sound whispered, "She is helping you hear the word doll. She is helping you see what a doll looks like," said Sight. "She is helping you say the word doll," said Speech. But Helen simply didn't understand. Have there ever been things that you have found difficult to understand? Progress was slow and difficult. Helen had liked it when everyone had spoiled her, but Anne wasn't going to give in to any of Helen's tantrums. She was going to help her change. Helen, however, was determined that she would not change. "Helen, it's good that you are determined," we would share with her. "But can you use your determination to discover what Anne is trying to teach you?" "I will not," she answered us silently. "I want to do things my way." Helen didn't know that Anne was just as determined. Anne spent weeks having Helen touch things and then spelling their names in Helen's hand. One day, Anne took Helen to a well and pumped water on her hands. It was cool and wet. Then Anne spelled the word water on Helen's hand, and suddenly Helen understood. "She's teaching me the words for things," Helen thought. "That's right," we all responded. There are many words to learn if you just have the determination to learn them. Helen became very excited. Can you remember how you felt when you suddenly understood something? Helen ran through the house touching a clock and a lamp and a chair and her teddy bear. She touched the face of her mother and the mustache of her father. And with each new thing she touched, Anne would spell the word in her hand. The more Helen learned, the more determined she became to learn more about everything she could. "You're learning to hear with your hand," said Sound. "And you're learning to see with your fingers," said Sight. "Someday you may even learn to talk," added Speech hopefully. Helen was determined that she would, so she traveled with Anne to the Horace Mann School for the Deaf. and she set to work to learn how to speak. Can you guess how Helen learned to talk? When Miss Fuller, the school's principal, spoke to Helen, she placed Helen's hand on her mouth. As Miss Fuller spoke, Helen could feel how her principal's lips moved and how her tongue moved against her teeth. Helen learned to move her own lips and tongue in the same way. "She's trying to make words," cried Speech. "She's learning to talk." Now Helen was finally listening to her true voice, to herself, to her own good thoughts. She smiled often as she continued to learn how to speak more and more words. Even though Helen was blind, she went on to learn how to read as well. She read books for the blind written in Braille by running her fingers over raised dots that made up the words on the page. She was so determined to learn all she could that Helen even went on to college, where she spent years studying and graduated with honors. "We're so proud of you, Helen," we whispered. "You are using your determination to accomplish so much." Can you see how determination might help you in your life? People were so impressed with what Helen had done that she became famous. Helen traveled all around the world speaking to many different groups of people. Even kings, queens, and presidents wanted to meet her. The most important thing that Helen did was to provide real inspiration. Through her determination, she helped people see that they could overcome any difficulties they might have and live happier lives as well. Today, blind and deaf people have more resources than ever before, and through their own determination, they are doing amazing things. Now, as our story ends, you might want to think about yourself. Could being more determined help you too? You may face different problems than Helen, but whatever you choose to do, you may discover that when you know the value of determination and use it in big and small ways, you can be happier too, just like our good friend, Helen Keller. Here's some facts about Helen Keller. So she was born in 1880 and she died in 1968. Helen Adams Keller was born in Alabama in 1880. Helen was a healthy child, but at the age of 19 months, she was stricken by a fever and became deaf, blind, and mute. Helen spent her early childhood in darkness, but when she was 7, her father learned that there might be help for Helen. He and Helen's mother were delighted when that help arrived in the person of Anne Sullivan. Anne could understand Helen's problems, for she herself had been almost blind until the age of 16. An operation restored part of her sight. Anne saw that Helen, like many other handicapped children, had been greatly spoiled by parents who felt sorry for her. Anne insisted on discipline for Helen. Later, Mrs. Keller was to say to her, "Miss Annie, I thank God every day of my life for sending you to us." When Helen's father became ill, Helen did not want to ask him for more money for the special schools she needed. One of Helen's admirers came to her rescue and helped raise the funds to send her to school. That admirer was Mark Twain, the famous author. He was only one of the many people who were inspired by Helen Keller's determination, which enabled Helen to learn Braille, to write, and even to speak. In 1904, she graduated with honors from Radcliffe College in Boston. Anne Sullivan, who helped Helen Keller use the value of determination, died in 1936 at the age of 70. After spending almost 50 years with Anne, Helen said to her, "A light has gone out that can never shine for me again." But Helen now clearly knew the value of determination. She kept working to help others until her death in 1968. Helen wrote articles, she gave lectures for the American Foundation for the Blind, and she helped raise a fund of $2 million for this foundation. On Helen's 80th birthday, the American Foundation for Overseas Blind honored her by announcing the Helen Keller International Award for those who gave outstanding help to the blind. A source of personal inspiration to many people, Helen was invited to visit every president of the United States from her childhood on. Her determination was a source of amazement and inspiration even to presidents with all the challenges they must face. To show how much she valued that determination, she once said, The marvelous richness of human experience would lose something of rewarding joy if there were no limitations to overcome. Well, I hope you like our story today. Our next story is our last one from this book, and it's going to be about Will Rogers and the value of humor. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!